Financial wellness. Reach out to them for advice at 855-DON-GINO. And now back to your hosts, Don Getling and Gino Fronti.
Reports and not reacting to reports that are telling you what has already happened in the past 2 or 3 months behind. So I know the same thing probably happens in your industry, Chris. So tell us a little bit how it relates in your industry.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what you said is the same thing I try and do. I try and go seek out information that I think is pertinent to the current situation so that I can bring the information to the table and try and make educated decisions. So, there's so much of the media that you just, if you go to the headlines are these big, dramatic, bold statements to, we talked about it a little bit, create fear or greed or whatever, the emotion that gets you to read that article.
There you go. It's all about building emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, right, in the past it used to be the big, bold, huge type italic on the cover of the newspaper. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. Right now, everything is 100% make you click.
Yeah.
Will this make someone click?
Definitely.
And that's really what the essence is of our headlines today.
A lot of times the headline, I click on it, and the article doesn't even really have
Relate
anything
to
to do
it.
with the headline.
Yeah.
It's a totally different topic than what the headline said. But you're right. Get them to click, get them to read. If it's on TV or there's a video, get them to watch, get them to stay tuned in. That's the whole design of the media, is to get you locked in and listen to the information. And scary is very easy to watch.
Well, and it can be you have to deal with it right now with the stock market being as volatile as it is. We see it a lot because we tear apart the media, just so you know, and I'm sure it drives you nuts, and that's why we give you the opportunity to tear them apart a little bit, because a lot of times it is basically just to get people to pay attention, to shock or fear them, and to make it.
Sensationalism is the word we use.
Yeah, they're marketing companies. They really are. And a lot of those analysts, and I won't say the analysts, actually the media doesn't even know what they're reading. They don't even know what they're talking about. They're just reading, basically sensationalizing a topic, but they don't even understand the topic. Whereas you understand in depth what's really happening in the market, and resistance levels and support levels and all these things that nobody even understands. When you're like, hey, we're hitting the top of a channel we were talking about in the break. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to know what that is. And I guarantee the media person, the pretty little girl or the dude who's screaming on screen, probably doesn't even know what that means. All they're saying is, fear, 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 scare, scare, scare.
Well, the
bye,
dude
bye,
that's
bye.
screaming on the screen that you're talking about is not a bad analyst, but he's a great entertainer.
Right.
And that's why he's on the screen.
Yeah.
So, and we've talked to people that work in the media, and they say it's entertainment first, education later.
Right.
And that's their instruction.
And one of the problems I have with some of that right there is that not necessarily that the information that they're sharing with you is bad, because I find some of the information very useful that is out there. I have the knowledge to pick and choose between what's good and what's bad.
Right.
But at the same time, relating the information back to the viewer is sometimes the difficulty that I think they have, is because they're talking about, I'd be a buyer here, or I'm a seller here, or I would get out here, or I would do this differently here. And what they're not explaining to you is that may not apply to you. That applies to their portfolio or the way they manage money or the way they're doing things. But if you have a different style of portfolio or a different time horizon or a different risk tolerance, that could totally be different or the opposite of what you want to do. And that doesn't get conveyed on television very well, or on radio, or in print even. And so people sometimes watch these shows and they get confused more than pushed in the right direction, because they're getting information. They think, I should react to that, but that information doesn't apply to them.
Well, I'm glad we're recording this, Chris. That was very eloquent, very
very
well
good.
put, because we see it every day. That's why we do the National Real Estate Cafe, to kind of help people through what's really happening out there when they're talking about interest rates and housing. Because you have one bad report for a housing report, and we've seen it, and there's a reason for it, because a regulation changed, and the housing report dies because all the loans and housing got pushed back a whole month because there was a delay to the new. But nobody understands it. They just see a report that says, oh, the sales are off 10% in 1 month, and everybody reacts, oh, it's so bad. Right. And we get on, same thing as like you're saying, we relay, hey, there's a reason for that. Mark our words. We have this little crystal ball on here for a reason. It basically says, mark our words. December is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be up 10%. because the trend is your friend. We always say we know the trend, and the trend has been very strong for housing. One report does not make a trend. So you see the same thing. I love how you broke it down, that a lot of the information is just not conveyed correctly or maybe not relatable to their particular portfolio. That was really well done.
Right.
Yeah, so I have something I'm going to bring up now that's probably going to roll into the next segment. But I want to say, and I'm going to use a broad statement, and then I'm going to let you elaborate on it. Never underestimate the federal government of any country when it comes to manipulating the money supply in order to manipulating the future.
Right.
And so our government included, China's government, Japan's government, Europe, they're not going to let the world fall apart, guys. They're going to use every tool in the arsenal, every trick in the book. They're going to add money, print money, shore money, send money, lend money to each other that doesn't exist.
Well, they didn't do that in the past. Now they know to do that.
Now they know to do that.
Right.
So
I guarantee when the market crashed in the Big Depression, I guarantee they're like, boy, that would have been good to do.
Yeah. So I'm less scared of China than I am of anybody else because they have more control over their monetary system than any other country in the world.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about how you feel about that. And we'll wrap it into the next segment. But
yeah, I mean, I agree with you in what you're saying is that there is so much control and there's so many things they can do. And I won't go into all the different intricate details because we don't have the time. But there's, I've been talking to people about things that they don't even know that, I've seen a lot of articles. The Fed doesn't have another arrow in their quiver. They're done. They're dried up.
Right.
They can't. And there's so many other things that they could potentially do if they need to do it. And kind of comes back to what we were talking about before, because it's really a matter of understanding what they could do, and then saying, under the current circumstances, do we think that they would do that? And what would push them to do that? And what would the impact be, so that you can go back and say, how overall would this affect our economy, affect my portfolio, affect me going forward, and then again be able to make decisions based on knowing that information.
Well, and you just hit the nail on the head. We're going to go to break here in just a little bit, but the thing that you understand and we now understand, that's what we try to relate to all of you out there so you understand a little bit more, is a lot of times you see locally what's going on. Here's what's happening in the U.S., but now so many factors across the seas, basically whether it's Europe or China, like you mentioned, Gino, affect us now. And when we watch those things, we can actually kind of predict how it may affect us down the road. So we're a global economy. It's totally different than the past.
Yeah, no, I'm going to bed at night checking out what China's doing and what reports are coming out. So in things that if you would have talked to me earlier in my career, I would look at it and have some idea of what was going on, but now it's as much of a routine that I have as looking at the U.S. market.
We have to tee up on that, because that's where the real experience makes a difference. When you use a true professional that has known their craft, has experience, and knows what to look at, where to find it, all that doesn't happen overnight. That's 10 to 20-year process, and that's why all the members of APRG are long-term professionals, and we're going to talk more about that when we come back. So don't go away. We got our final segment with the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show with Chris Ingram of Ingram Financial Solutions, and just basically making you be able to sleep tight. We'll be right back.